In the previous video, we saw about the various input types, namely radio button, then text type, label, and all that. But now here we are going to see some more input types. Okay, so here radio button is used for selecting one option among the many multiple options. Checkbox is used to select multiple choices. Let's say, suppose you are given, you want to select some of your hobbies. Some of the hobbies are listed and you are asked to select. So you will, a person may have more than one hobbies. So then there will be multiple choices, multiple selections also. So checkboxes let a user select 0 or more options of a limited number of choices. So how do we give this checkbox? So you will have to give inside the form tab, you say input type equal to checkbox, and then give an ID for this. So here and name vehicle 1, value bike, and then so let us see the so this is it. So input type defines a checkbox. So this is a paragraph. So I can now select any one. I have a bike, I have a car, I have a boat. So I can select any one of this and then press a submit button. So here you have HTML and inside that you have body, and then H2 here the heading checkboxes, and then there is a paragraph. So they have used strong style. Okay, so this we have already seen in previous video. And then form. Now action equal to, so I told you about this action is a particular, it's a it's an important attribute for this form. So when you give a submit button, so you have a submit button here. So when you give a submit button and when you press this, once when you select these options and then when you press submit, what happens is, so the data is actually taken back to the server. So this page will actually be displayed. So when you press a submit button, what does this action attribute tell you? The action attribute tells that the control has to go to this particular page. So if you run this, so this is it. Now let me suppose I check these two and then I click. So here this is actually the action page dot php. So a PHP is nothing but it's a software which is used for programming your server side programming. Okay, so PHP. I told you the data when you submit, it gets transferred to, it goes to the server and then comes out. So here it says your input received, the server has received these two inputs. What are the vehicle 1 equal to bike. So look at this, the name vehicle 1. Okay, vehicle 1 value is bike. Now you will see the difference between the radio button and the checkbox. In radio button, the name gender, in the example all the three radio buttons had the same name, because out you can choose only one option among that group called gender. Whereas here in checkbox you can choose as many options as you want. You can choose all the three options also. So which means if you have checked it, then the it has to return each and every option whether you have checked it or not. So that is why you have different names here. So the first checkbox has a name vehicle 1, the second one has vehicle 2, and the third one has got vehicle 3. And I checked the first two options. So it says vehicle 1 equal to bike and vehicle 2 equal to car. So these are the two values that was submitted by me, and these two entered the server, and it has now come back to you in the form of this page which says that these are the values that was submitted. So basically let us not worry about this page, because this can be this you can learn only when you learn server side programming, which is PHP or ASP.NET. So where you will have to you will be learning all this in your third year, okay, in your final year. So now we will just know that action is one of the attribute, so when you have a submit button, then it takes this action. Okay, so now we are interested only in a static web page. So how to give a checkbox? So that is all we are interested in. So you have to have a the checkbox again, as we saw earlier. Okay, as we saw earlier in the you have a checkbox. So the input type comes out only with the checkbox. So the text that comes after it, that is defined by your label. So you must have a label for the checkbox, for the input box. So the input, when you say checkbox, it just gives you this checkbox alone. So what is it? What option is it? So the text associated with each checkbox has to be given using a label. So this you already know. So input type equal to checkbox, and ID equal to vehicle 1, name equal to vehicle 1, value equal to bike, and then label for attribute for equal to vehicle 1. You will have to give whatever ID you have given, that ID you have to give here. So for equal to vehicle 1, then I have a bike, whatever it is. So this is the text that appears here, and then close label and break. Break is so that you can go to the next line and display the next option. So this is checkbox. Okay, then submit button. As I told you, submit button. So this input type equal to submit is a clickable button, and when you submit this, when you click on this button, the data that you have entered, the form data will be will be submitted to the form handler. Now what do you mean by form handler? I told you this action page.php is your whatever you have written, not necessarily PHP, whatever, it can even be a whatever it is, it can be a Perl, it can be PHP, it can be some other programming thing also, any web page. So this this is a server page. So at this, whatever you have given in the action, that will be triggered. So when you press submit, this will be automatically triggered. Okay, so when you give a submit button, then you should give this action attribute in the form. Otherwise what will happen is nothing will happen. It will just be as it is. So you will press the submit button and the page will be displayed as it is. Nothing will happen. Okay, so once when you press the submit, you see some action there because you have associated this action attribute to the form. But more about this you will learn it. So this HTML will come a very long way. You will be using it throughout. I mean in the next semester, in the next one full semester, and then in the next year throughout you will be using it in JavaScript, and then in the third year again you will use this when you learn PHP. So this HTML is a base, and you will be applying this HTML throughout. So you should not forget all these things. Okay, now so let us see some of the other form elements. Okay, so what are the other form elements? So we have seen input, we have seen label. So let us see the other form elements, namely select. So input we have seen, label we have seen. Now what is this select? Select is associated with a drop down list box. Now what do you mean by a drop down list box? So this is the various options. So we saw for giving options, we saw you can give radio button, you can give checkbox, and the third one is this is a drop down list. Okay, so the difference between a radio button, checkbox and this. In radio button you can choose among the group of options, you can choose only one option. In checkbox all the options are displayed. In radio button and in checkboxes all the options are displayed, and in radio button you can choose only one option, whereas in a checkbox you can choose more than one option. Now whereas in a drop down list, here also multiple options are given. So here you can either choose one option or you can allow the user to choose multiple options also, both. And the other point is, in a web page, the size of the window, the size of the screen that you have for putting all your information is very limited. So because of that, if you list out all the options, then it will occupy more space. Instead, if you can give something like this which is occupying very less space, and only when you click on this arrow mark all the options will, there will be, this is called a drop down list. A drop down, when you click on that, a list will drop down, and when you click outside, the list will uh, this will be disabled. Okay, so it will be shortened. You are giving it in a shortened form. So this is called a drop down list, or it will be collapsed. When you it will get expanded, the list will be expanded, and when you click outside the list will be collapsed, and the space taken will be very less when you are using a drop down list box. And moreover, this in the same option you can allow either the user to select either a single option or multiple option also. These are some of the advantages of having a drop down list. So now how do we do this? How do we give this? So here you will have to say label for car, a label is associated. Okay, then now this is how we will have to give the drop down list. So for the select is associated with a drop down list. So select id equal to cars, name equal to cars, and then this select tag contains another nested tag which is called as option. So each and every option inside the drop down list has to be given inside the option tag. Okay, so the drop down list itself is a combination of select and option tags. So select, you will have to give id equal to cars, name equal to cars, give some id and give some name. Then inside that, for each and every option, so here there are 4 options. So if you have 5 options, then you will have 5 option tags. So open the option tag and then the value. So when the user clicks on this Volvo, what is the value that you want to be returned? That is given as the value. So if it is Volvo and if you want the value to be returned as 1, then you can give value equal to 1. So whatever you give, so the Volvo, Saab, Fiat, Audi, idella vandu for the user to click. But once when the user clicks on that, what is the data that is returned to the server? That is your value. The value need not be Volvo, Saab, Fiat, Audi. It can be something else. It can be just 1, 2, 3, 4 also. So that what will happen in your, when you write your program, in your coding, you can check if the value is equal to 1, then you can display something. So this only when you learn programming, how to program this, you will know more, you will be using more these values. But now you will just understand that this attribute value is the value that once when the user checks on this option, clicks on the option, this particular option, this is whatever you have given in the value attribute, that value will be returned to the server. So upper option value equal to Volvo, and then give the whatever you want to display, the whatever name you want, whatever option you want to be displayed in the drop down list, that option is given, and then close the option tag. Like this you give all the options and then close the select tag also. So this is how you give a drop down list. So the option element defines an option that can be selected. By default, the first item in the drop down list is selected. Okay, so now you can given, if you look at this, you have the first option, which is Volvo, displayed here. That is, whatever that is displayed here is the option that is selected. Now if you have a drop, if you click on this, you will see the blue this thing. So the Volvo is highlighted with blue color, which means that is the option that is selected. Now you can, if you want to select this Audi, then you will see that the highlighted string keeps moving, okay, which means the cursor is on this option. So you can select this, okay. So that is the meaning of it. Now, but if you want to define, you don't want Volvo to be there, I want Fiat to be the option, then in that case, how do we do that? So you will have to add another attribute which is called as selected attribute. So if you want Fiat to be the option, then look at this. So here, instead of Volvo, it is displaying Fiat. If you click on this, you will see that the Fiat option is chosen, okay. So how do we do that? Then when you define the option tag, you will have to add one other attribute which is called selected, and it doesn't have a value to it. You will have to just say selected. So option value equal to Fiat, and then say selected. So which means this option is pre-selected, okay. So that is the meaning of it. Then visible values. Visible values are, now here initially the visible value, we were able, there were 4 options and you were able to see only the first option, the option that was either it was pre-selected or by default the first option. But if you want, I don't want the single option to be displayed, I want at least 2 or 3 options to be displayed, then in that case you will have to give this size equal to 3. If you look at this, you will see there are 4 options, and but we have given in the select where should we give the size attribute? You will have to give it in the select tag itself. So select ID equal to cars, name equal to cars. So there, if you give size equal to 3, you will see that the drop down list box itself is displayed differently. You have a scroll bar here, okay, you have a scroll bar here, it is displayed differently, okay. So now you will see that the first 3 options are displayed here. So that is because of this giving this attribute size equal to 3. Now I told you in drop down list box you can allow multiple options also. So how do we give multiple options? Now you will have to say, you will have to add another attribute which is called multiple. So in the select tag, you will have to say select ID equal to cars, name equal to cars, size equal to 4 and multiple. Now in that case, size equal to 4, which means all the 4 options will be displayed. And you will see, you don't see, because these are the only 4 options, all the 4 options are displayed, and you don't have a scroll bar. So now I have Volvo and it is allowing me to select, okay. So it says hold down the control key and then select. If I press the control key and then select, you can select multiple options, okay. So for allowing multiple options, you will have to add the attribute multiple in the select tag. So these are some of the other, this is all about drop down list box, okay. Next is text area. Text area, the normal text is, it is a single line text where you can enter only one line of text, whereas text area is you can enter multiple lines of text, okay. So let's say you want to accept address. So address is which you don't normally enter address in a single line. So you will just enter the name and the apartment name in the first number and the apartment name in the first flat name, flat number and the apartment name in the first line. Then in the next line it says, let's say street name, and in the third line you will enter the area and the city and the pin code and the state. So this is how you give the address. So if you want to, so which means you can now, so this is a bigger area where you can type whatever you want. Okay, so here if you look at the example here, says HTML body h2 tag, and then some paragraph is given here, and then form tag is opened, and then action because a submit button is given here. Now a text area is defined. So text area, name equal to message, rows equal to 10, columns equal to 30. This rows and columns define the size of your text area. So number of rows 10 lines you can enter, and columns 30 columns maximum you can enter. Okay, and the cat was playing in the garden is a default text, but you can enter whatever you want. You can just delete this and then type whatever you want and then press submit. Now you are here, two break tags are given, so that there will be some space between the text area and this submit button. That is all. So in text area, all you should know is to define the size of your text area, you should give the two attributes, rows and columns. Okay, or you can even give the width. You can give, this is direct, this rows and columns are the attributes that you can directly give, or you can give the style attribute, and then you can give the width and height of the height using the style attribute. That is also that will also have the same effect. Then the last one is button. So button is clickable button. We have already seen submit button, but this is a clickable button. So how do we give this? So when you click on this, some action has to take place. So let's see this example. So mostly this when you click on this, some action has to take place. What action has to take place? That you will write it in the form of a program. You will have to write some coding for that. Okay, so for that coding you'll have to use either JavaScript. JavaScript is client side coding. Client side, I told you in the previously I told you PHP, ASP, all these things are server side coding, whereas your client side is from the user side. So user side scripting language is JavaScript. That you will learn it in the next semester. Okay, so but anyways, how to create a clickable button, how to place a clickable button on your web page. So that is what we are going to see now. So here if you look at this, there is a clickable button. So when you click on this, a window appears. This is called an alert window. So it appears and then it says an embedded page on the embedded page on, so here it says hello world. Okay, and then you can click on this. Okay, so now this is called an alert window. So when how do we actually place this? So you will have to start the this button is not an input type. Input type equal to submit. That alone is the submit button alone is in the input tag, whereas this button is a separate one. So you'll have to say button type equal to button. Now on click. So on click is an event. So when you click on this, on clicking this event, on clicking this button, what should happen? This is a JavaScript coding, so let's not bother about this. And then close. So button type equal to button, close the angular brackets, and this click me. Click me is whatever you want, what text you want to be shown on top of the button. So the button is just the gray color thing that is there. So on top of this gray color rectangular box, you want some text to be displayed. So that text is click me, and then slash button. So here you can give anything. You can give click me, you can give button 1, you can whatever you want you can give. Okay, so this is how you give the button, and this is how it will be displayed in the on the browser. Okay, now field set and legend elements. Mostly these things we will not be using much, but the field set is, let's say, suppose you want to have this is called a legend. Okay, legend gardu inga or square box, and then here the some heading is given. So இந்த மாதிரி display பண்றது தான் this is called a legend. And inside this legend we now group these first name, last name, these the label first name, and then this text box, the label last name, and the text box, and then this submit button. We are grouping everything and we are calling that as a field set. Okay, and then we are putting all this field set into this legend. So how do we do that? So you have defined the form, and then since there is a submit button, you give some action attribute here, and then you say start the field set, and then inside this field set we have the legend. So you'll have to say legend and then give the title for the legend and close the legend. So whatever you want to text, whatever you text you want to appear here, that text will be, you will be give it inside the legend. And then the rest is all the same. You will define the label, then you will define the text box for first name, label for last name, text for last name, text box for last name, and finally the submit button. So these things we have already seen. So the only new thing is define a field set and put everything, and then define a legend, and then put everything inside the field set. இது ஒரு group மாதிரி இருக்கும். So this will appear neatly in your web page. So these are some of the important form elements that you should know. The rest is, apart from this, there are so many other things like output, data list, and all that. So there are other elements, form elements also, but out of interest you can learn them by yourself. But these are the important form elements that you will have to know. And these elements only we will be using mostly, but the rest of it, if you become a web designer, you may have to know the whole thing. Okay, the next is the input types, HTML input types. Again, mostly we have seen all the input types, that most of the input type that we require. And here you see there is a wide range of input types, and some of it we have already seen. Okay, we have seen button, and then checkbox. So button, we have seen the button as an element also we have seen, and you can also give that as a type of input. So input type equal to button அப்படினு கொடுக்கலாம். Okay, so input type equal to button. Now how to give a password? So password is input type equal to password. So here when you give input, let's say you give username, and then again you give password. So when you give password like this, you can define something like this. So when you define like this, if you type whatever you type here, this will appear as a, when you say password, when you say type equal to password, then the whatever you type, that will appear as a asterisk, a star. Okay, so that is the only difference between text and password. So whenever you want to accept the username, you can use text, and when you want to accept password, you can use the type password. Okay, so and then we have seen what else we have seen? Password radio we have seen, submit we saw, text we saw, and the rest is all, if we saw checkbox, and the rest is, if whatever if out of your interest, you can learn whatever it is, what and where exactly they are used and all that. Okay, so this is all about HTML forms. So from I have completed HTML and CSS with this is the last video for HTML and CSS. So now we'll have to start doing our exercise. I will post I will give you the list of exercises, and then you will have to write down the HTML code by learning all this. you'll have to write the HTML code and then run it on the browser. Okay, there are about 3 or 4 exercises, so I will give you those exercises. Thank you.